Namaskar, ladies and gentlemen. Today, we will talk about a story that many of you know. It is the story of a very big ship. This ship was called the Titanic. It was built a long time ago, more than 100 years in the past. People wanted to build the biggest and best ship in the world. They wanted a ship that could travel across the great Atlantic Ocean. This ocean is very wide and separates America from Europe. The dream was to create a ship so grand that everyone would talk about it. It was a symbol of hope and modern technology. The company that built the Titanic was called the White Star Line. They were in a big competition with another company. Both companies wanted to have the fastest and most luxurious ships, so the White Star Line decided to build not just one, but 3 giant ships. The Titanic was the second of these 3 sister ships. The main purpose of these ships was to carry people from England to America. Many people were moving to America at that time. They were looking for a new life and new opportunities. The Titanic was their chariot of dreams, promising a safe and comfortable journey. The building of this great ship was a very big job. It took thousands of workers and about 3 years to complete. They used millions of steel parts, all held together by strong rivets. Imagine a building, but one that could float on water. That is how big the Titanic was. When it was finished, it was the largest moving object ever made by humans. People from all over the world were amazed by its size and beauty. They called it the Ship of Dreams because it represented a future full of wonderful possibilities for everyone who would sail on it. When the Titanic was finally ready, everyone celebrated. Newspapers wrote big stories about it. People came from far away just to look at it. The creators of the ship were very proud. They believed the Titanic was not just big, but also very safe. They had designed it with special compartments that could be sealed if water got in. Because of this clever design, many people thought the Titanic was unsinkable. They believed that nothing could ever make this mighty ship go down. This belief, however, would soon be tested in a very tragic way. Now, let us lock in on what made this ship so special. The Titanic was like a floating palace on the sea. It was designed to give its passengers amazing comfort and luxury. For the very rich people in first class, the ship had beautiful rooms, like in a 5-star hotel. These rooms, called suites, had private bathrooms and fancy wooden furniture. There was a grand staircase with a glass dome on top. Light would shine through and make everything sparkle. It was a place of great elegance, where wealthy people could enjoy their journey in style, feeling like royalty. The ship was not just beautiful, it was full of amazing things to do. For entertainment, there was a swimming pool, which was a new thing for a ship back then. There was also a gym with exercise machines. Passengers could play games like squash in a special court. For relaxing, there were several cafes and lounges where people could sit, talk, and listen to music played by a live band. There was even a library full of books for those who enjoyed reading. The company wanted to make sure that no one ever felt bored while crossing the vast ocean. Even for the passengers in second and third class, the ship was much better than others of its time. The second-class rooms were as nice as first-class rooms on many other ships. They also had their own dining rooms and libraries. The third-class area, while simpler, was clean and comfortable. For many poor immigrants traveling to America, the conditions on the Titanic were better than what they had at home. The ship offered them good food and a safe place to sleep. It was a sign that they were heading towards a better life, a promise of comfort and dignity for all. One of the most impressive features of the Titanic was its power and technology. It had huge engines that made it one of the fastest ships on the water. It also had a telegraph room, which was very modern. From here, the crew could send messages to other ships and to the land using a wireless radio system. This was like the internet of that time. Passengers could even send personal messages called marconigrams to their friends and family. This technology made the world feel smaller and more connected, even from the middle of the empty ocean. So, the stage was set for the Titanic's first ever trip. This is called a maiden voyage. On April 10, 1912, the ship left from Southampton, England. Crowds of people gathered to watch it leave. They waved goodbye and wished the passengers a good journey. More than 2,200 people were on board. This group included some of the richest people in the world, as well as hundreds of poor families hoping for a new start in America. The ship was a small world of its own, with people from all walks of life together on one vessel. The journey had begun. For the first few days, everything was perfect. The weather was good and the sea was calm. Passengers were enjoying all the wonderful things the ship had to offer. First-class guests attended fancy dinners and parties. Children played games on the deck. The ship sailed smoothly across the ocean, getting closer to its destination, New York City. The captain of the ship, Captain Edward Smith, was very experienced. This was going to be his last journey before he retired. Everyone felt safe and happy, with no idea of the danger that was quietly waiting for them in the dark waters ahead. During the journey, the ship's radio operators received several warnings from other ships. These messages said there were large fields of ice, called icebergs, in the area they were sailing towards. An iceberg is a giant piece of ice that has broken off from a glacier and is floating in the ocean. These warnings were very important. However, not all of them were passed on to the captain and his officers on the bridge. The ship continued to sail at a high speed, trying to reach New York on time. The night of April 14th was very cold, and the sea was unusually still, like a mirror. At 11:40 p.m. on that fateful night, a lookout saw something dark in the distance. It was a huge iceberg, right in the path of the ship. He rang the warning bell and telephoned the bridge, shouting, "Iceberg, right ahead!" The officers tried to turn the ship quickly, but it was too big and moving too fast. The side of the massive ship scraped along the hidden sharp edge of the iceberg. The impact was not a loud crash, but a long, grinding noise. Many passengers did not even feel it. But below the water, the iceberg had made a series of holes in the ship's side. After the ship hit the iceberg, water began to pour into the front part of the ship. The designers of the Titanic soon realized the terrible truth. The damage was too much. The ship that was called Unsinkable was now definitely sinking. The crew was ordered to prepare the lifeboats. There was a very big problem, however. The ship did not have enough lifeboats for everyone on board. There were only enough spaces for about half of the people. This was a shocking reality. The rule at that time said ships only needed lifeboats based on their weight, not the number of passengers. Panic slowly started to spread as the ship began to tilt. The crew tried to stay calm and follow the rule of women and children first into the lifeboats. But there was a lot of confusion in the dark and cold night. Many of the first lifeboats were launched only half full because people did not understand how serious the situation was. In the end, out of more than 2,200 people on the ship, only about 705 people survived. More than 1,500 men, women, and children were lost to the freezing Atlantic Ocean. It was one of the deadliest sea disasters in history. The story of the Titanic did not end when the ship sank. The survivors were rescued by another ship, the Carpathia, which had heard their distress calls. When the news reached the world, everyone was in shock. How could this unsinkable ship sink on its very first voyage? Inquiries were held in both America and Britain to find out what went wrong. The disaster led to many important changes in sea travel. New laws were made that required all ships to have enough lifeboats for every single person. It also led to the creation of the International Ice Patrol, which tracks icebergs to keep ships safe. So, why do we still remember the Titanic today, more than a century later? The correct answer is, we remember it for many reasons. It is a powerful story about human pride and the forces of nature. It teaches us that we should never be too confident in our technology. It is also a story of great heroism and great sadness, of people from different classes facing the same fate. The story has been told in many books, songs, and famous movies. It reminds us of the lives that were lost and the lessons we learned from that tragic night. The Titanic rests deep in the ocean, but its story will live on in our hearts forever.